all doing your student accident insurance. On average, we have about 155 student accident claims per year, which is right in line with districts your size. 80% of those claims are athletic related, and 20% of those claims are non-athletic related, which is, it's actually a good split to have. We can't loss control an ACL tear on the football field, but when we see 40% non-athletic claims, that's usually a sign of improper supervision, recess, gym claims. So the fact that you all are only at 80% is actually a really good number to have athletics at 80 and non-athletic claims at 20. But every year, as your all student accident broker, we go to the market just to see what options are out there, to see if there are better prices in the marketplace. So if you look, we have prices from Nationwide, which is your renewal, and this coverage is written through K&K Insurance as your claims provider. And then we also got quotes from Axis and Zurich Insurance. Very pleased. The renewal with Nationwide came in, it's flat. It's $235,000. Axis Insurance was $309,000, and then we have Zurich at $298,000. So, of course, student accident is tied to healthcare. So, as my brother and I go across the state, granted this year is virtually, and sometimes we see some increases due to the healthcare going up so much. But we're very happy that Nationwide's offered a good price, and it's actually a flat renewal from last year. One thing we do like, K&K, the claims administrator, they have the best networks. What we do is we identify your key providers every year, and then we'll negotiate with those providers to make sure that if a student at Madison County Schools were to get injured, we're getting the best price that we can. So on average, we get about $650,000 in savings through the network that we've created through K&K Insurance. So that's real dollars that otherwise would be applied to your loss data. So getting those networks, that's the reason why we like to use K&K Insurance. I'm sorry, I should have asked for questions a lot earlier.
No, I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. So the Nationwide includes the $7.5 million cat policy. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct, Lori. Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
All right. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Well, I know I've personally, for my child, have used the K&K Insurance. It was very easy and accessible, and we appreciate all you all do for us, Mr. Roberts.
Well, thank you very much. And you all know how to get a hold of me. Hopefully all of you all have my cell phone, but if you do not, I'm happy to give it to you. And anytime you need anything, please don't hesitate to call.
All right. Any other questions, or are we ready to move on to the motion? Okay, then I need a motion to approve the continuation purchase of student accident insurance with Roberts Insurance as presented.
So moved.
The motion been made by Mrs. Coyle. The second by, was that you, Mrs. Cobb?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. All right, do we have Mr. Livingston with us?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Here. Yes.
Perfect. Then we will move on to 5B on our agenda. Approve the continuation purchase of general liability, workers' comp, fleet insurance. And we have Mr. David Livingston with us. Hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you. I appreciate being on here tonight. And I also have David Brooks with me. We look like a bad TV show or something sitting here. Sometimes I can't stand doing these Zoom meetings. But I'm sure that you all have been presented the premium comparisons. There's some other additional data that I'm not sure if was included that was given to you all. It talks about the rising cost of insurance claims. It talks about commercial auto, general liability, umbrella, and property. The increases that we're seeing most of are coming from the liability side and from the auto. The liability, including the abuse and molestation claims, have increased about 90% over the last 3 years. I also included about April or so, I went in and did just a quick search online for arrests and charges made in the state of Kentucky pertaining to school districts and personnel. And what we found is over the last 3 years, we're seeing an arrest or charges about every 6 to 8 weeks with a school personnel individual. That's kind of shocking. And then on top of that, these claims typically, when they pay out from anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 if there is a lawsuit involved. So we're seeing a very large spike in those claims occurring. We're also seeing claims increasing on the auto side, and even though we've gone through coronavirus and there seems to be more people staying at home. Luckily, there have been fewer people on the road. Hopefully, we'll see a downtrend in auto accidents and auto liability issues. But this year, with Liberty Mutual and the other carriers that we work with, what we've seen is anywhere from a 9 to about a 17% increase on every school district just about in the state of Kentucky that we work with. The districts that are cleaner with regards to claims have seen the lower end of the increases, and as you get higher with claims, you see higher increases. The property and liability and auto carriers, there's still only 3 right now that are in the state. There's Liberty Mutual, which still writes about 135, 140 districts. There is EMC, which writes about 23, 24 districts. And then there's Wright Specialty that kind of picks up the rest of those. Wright Specialty is currently renegotiating with a new reinsurance carrier. And so they were actually not providing proposals this year for anything for us on any new business. EMC is kind of easing into the marketplace. They are working their way in, which is, from our perspective, we think that's a good way to come into the marketplace. You don't want to come in and be the cheapest and write everything out there, because at some point in time, you're going to get burned and probably leave the state. So then there's Liberty Mutual writing about 135, 140 districts. KEME is still the big writer of work comp in the state. They write about 135, 140 districts. I'm not sure what else they may have picked up this year, but 2 of their classes of their rates went down this year. Your mod went down a little bit too, which gave you some relief in that. So does anyone have any questions for me that I can answer?
Yes. David, did you market the account to EMC or the work comp to anybody else this year?
We did not market the account to EMC this year. And the work comp, we did not take it out to market. What we've seen in the marketplace with everybody is we're actually moving people from other carriers back to KEME. And we did ask Liberty Mutual to take a look at it. They saw the KEME. We discussed what the expiration was, and they said that they could not be competitive, and so they declined to provide a proposal.
Okay. And what is our mod this year?
Your mod, oh shoot, I don't have that in here. I'm sitting in the lobby of the office so that David and I can see it. David's going to get it real quick. So do you have another question?
Well, I'm just wondering, how much of the increase was Liberty and how much of the increase, if any, was KEME?
The KEME went down about $6,000, or I'm sorry, yes, about $6,000. And then the increase was Liberty. The increase with Liberty is about 10%.
Okay. And then I also noticed too, where is the cyber? I didn't see the cyber in anything.
The cyber is an August 1st date. So we just got the application from central office. Sorry, I don't know if that's me. I'll say that again. The cyber is an August renewal date.
Okay.
And so we just got the applications back from central office, and we'll be submitting that for renewal probably tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't know what's wrong. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
My computer went nuts for some quick second. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I have a pretty simple question, I think. On the handout that we were provided, and it had the price breakdown for property and casualty. What does the inland marine, the charge for $1,200, what exactly does that cover?
Say that last part again. Inland marine.
What does that cover?
That would be like equipment. It could be trailers. And are you looking at the additional coverages, the optional coverages available? Is that what you were looking at?
It's the premium breakdown for Madison's 2021 renewal, and it was property and casualty from Liberty Mutual, where it listed the general liability, property, inland marine, and crime, fleet, and umbrella.
Okay, so they just put all those terms in there. Inland marine coverage would be like equipment. It could be mowers, it could be trailers that are listed separately within the policy to provide coverage outside of your business personal property.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, David, just one last question. I'm assuming you did everything like per expiring, same buses, same blanket limit, everything the same.
Yes. Other than you guys are on the appraisal value. So Liberty takes a 2% increase each year. So on the blanket limit, it did go up 2%, but on the buses, they were all done based on what Mr. Lakes provided us from the transportation department.
Okay.
And also, just real quick, speaking of buses, the district is participating in the bus layup program. We had talked to the underwriting director at Liberty and then went to Kay Kennedy at the Kentucky Department of Education to get them to approve it. And thankfully, they did approve it. And so you all are participating on that. We won't actually know what the premium return will be until that endorsement is done. And Liberty is working on getting all their new business out first, and then they'll come back and work on the endorsements. And what the bus layup program did for any of the buses that you parked after March 13th, and Mr. Lakes gave us a list of all those buses that were parked and were not used, we were able to remove all coverages except comprehensive coverage. And so we removed liability and collision. And so those portion of those premiums from March 13th through June 30th, you will be reimbursed for those as a refund. Ms. Cobb, your question, it went from a 1.22 to a 1.17.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Livingston? Okay, then. I need a motion to approve the continuation purchase of general liability and workers' compensation, fleet, and pollution insurance with Roding Insurance as presented.
So moved.
All right, the motion's been made by Mrs. Brock. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Coyle. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposition? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Livingston.
All right, thank you all.
And I apologize again for my computer. It threw me off. So
okay, I will let you know also that we're working with administration on having some online training available for staff, and hopefully we'll have that in the next couple of weeks to be able to let the board take a look at to see if all of you would like to implement it and also participate in the training as well.
Oh, I think that's an excellent idea. And I think this is a hands-on group, so I think we would really appreciate that.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you all.
All right. Moving on to 5C on our agenda, to approve the copy paper purchase. We have Mr. Dustin Brumbaugh with us, Director of Human Resources. Hello, Mr. Brumbaugh.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. As you might recall, in the past, the same way this year, we typically buy all of our copy paper for the entire year in one big purchase. We try to buy it by the truckload. Literally here, the proposal for the cost here for this year is with Action Business Suppliers for $93,993.20. This is for 4 truckloads. The short answer is basically those 4 truckloads come into our maintenance department, and then that gives us the best rate with 4 whole truckloads going to one place. And then they take those truckloads, the maintenance department does, and disperses that paper out to all of our schools. They house it themselves for the entire school year. So of that $93,993.20, each school will pay for their portion of the paper that they're purchasing. Are there any questions?
What was the cost difference between last year and this year? Was it about the same?
Exactly, to the penny. When we talked with Brian from Action Business Suppliers, we negotiated, and I basically said, hey, can you try to match what you can? And he got with a couple of his paper vendors and came back to us and said that yes, he could match to the penny. It's $27.36 per case of white copy paper.
My question is this: with the NTI days that we use and all the extra days during the pandemic, did we use less paper last year? So do we have a lot left over?
I can't speak to the schools. They would know how much they had left over, if maybe they used more or less. But what I do every year is I tell them, here's how many cases you bought last year. That way you can kind of compare what you bought last year, with what you might still have in reserve. And that kind of helped them gauge how much, if they needed to order more or a little bit less. I can't speak to that. I do know we usually keep a little bit of extra in reserve. That one left a little bit. We were starting to get a very small amount left in our reserve. So that put about 80 cases in reserve for us that we're purchasing this year, which that is the copy paper that we use at the board office and things like that. So, but that NTI point was a point of emphasis I made sure to make with the principals.
Now, some of this paper is what Mr. Cash will keep back in case school runs out and they need a little extra. They can beg him for it.
100% correct. Every once in a while, you'll get a school that'll say, I'm about to run a little short. I need 20 cases, 40 cases. Maintenance department takes it to them, and then we turn around and charge their funds for the cost that we purchased it for. So, yes.
Are there any other questions? Okay, then I need a motion to approve the purchase of copy paper with Action Business Suppliers in the amount of $93,993.20.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Rutherford. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, second by Mrs. Cobb. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Staying with you, Mr. Brumbaugh, we need to approve the continuation of purchasing contracts.
Yes, I believe one of the attachments that you guys have is a 2-page document that tells the list of, a 3-page document that tells a list of all the different vendors that we are advocating that we continue the contract, and then there are 10 of them that we are advocating to end the contract with. I guess a quick look back in history. In the spring of 2017, we were pretty much using almost all of the contracts with our co-op with CKEC, the Central Kentucky Education Services or Center. I'm not sure what the C is, but anyway, they once we got familiar with some of their contracts, it was brought to our attention some of their contracts didn't all have all the verbiage that maybe needed to follow procurement, to use federal funds and things like that. So in 2017, you see a lot of those, that's when a lot of those contracts started. That's when we started bidding things out and doing a lot of contracts ourselves. Fast forward 3 years, these co-ops have now cleaned up a lot of their contracts, and we feel like we can start using a lot of their contracts again. So the 10 companies that we, at the top of that document, that we are advocating to terminate the contract with, we would still be able to purchase from them if we chose to, but those 10 have contracts in place with our co-op. So long story short, we're advocating for all those contracts to continue for another year. The 10 to terminate, but we could still purchase from it if we chose to, because again, they have contracts with our co-ops. Hope I'm explaining that well.
Do we have a lot of locals on there? I looked over some of that and I've seen a lot of local farm to table top places, but I didn't recognize names, but that doesn't mean anything because I don't know all about the farm side of the lot. But are those local, or are we reaching out past? Because with everything going on, we need to be having support right here in our own community. So I hope we looked at that a whole lot more.
Yeah, 100% agree on a lot of these contracts, not all of them, but a lot of them, when they come in, price is one factor of when we look at trying to do business with somebody. We usually award a specific number of points if they're actually in our county. A lot of them with our shirt companies and stuff like that you see on there. There's quite a few right in Madison County. But when you get into like band equipment, for example, you're going to have to go to Lexington or Louisville a lot of times for stuff like that. So to answer your question, yes, you're right, Ms. Coyle. Some of these companies I'm not even that familiar with either. I know that, some of those I was working with Scott Anderson in food service with his, vegetables and cleaning supplies and things like that maybe Mr. Cash might use in the maintenance department and stuff like that. So to answer your question, yes, many of these, if there's the ability, if there is one that's here local in our county, we definitely did do that and awarded more points accordingly to try to keep a lot of these purchases and money spent right here at home.
I noticed there are several on this list that are local. So, Ms. Webb, I'm glad to see as many local on there that we have. So that's really good.
Yeah, in 2017, when we did this, that was a pretty clear expectation of Mr. Gillum and quite a few of you that were on the board at that time.
Yeah, that was the intent. That was one of the main intents behind the doing our our independent purchasing agreements, to be able to get those local vendors on there.
Very good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, then I need a motion to approve the continuation of purchasing contracts as presented.
So moved.
All right, the motion's been made by Mrs. Cobb. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Brumbaugh. Moving on to 5E, to approve the Microsoft agreement. Hello, Mr. Cecil.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Microsoft Campus Agreement. We renew it every year. It's what provides licensing for all of our Windows 10 workstations throughout the district, all of our servers, as well as providing up to 5 instances that students and staff can install of Microsoft Office on personal devices. Does anybody have any questions about it?
I think we're leaving all the technology to you, Mr. Cecil.
Fair enough.
Mine's already messed up at home tonight. One. All right. Okay, if there's no other questions, then I need a motion to approve the Microsoft agreement as presented.
So moved. Sorry,
All right, we'll go with Mrs. Coyle and a second by Mr. Rutherford. Is that okay?
that's fine.
All right. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there no, we did a second. All right. Any opposition is what I meant to say. All right. Motion carries then. Thank you, Mr. Cecil.
Thank you all.
Moving on to 5F, to approve the bus purchases. Our speaker now is Mr. Shane Lakes, Director of Transportation.
Hello again, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. Coming to you tonight to ask for the purchase of 10 Thomas buses. We order 10 every year. That breaks down to 2 66 passenger. Actually, they're not 66 passenger. That's how they're identified, but it's a special needs bus with a lift. 4 conventional buses, which are listed as 72 passenger, and 4 rear engine buses, 84 passenger buses, for a total cost of $1,065,276. Are there any questions that I can answer for you all?
Mr. Lakes, will these buses come equipped? Are we going ahead and ordering them with cameras?
What we do, great question. We want cameras on every bus. We can get a better deal ordering the cameras separately, and my mechanics are going to install them. We got a little bit of savings on that with them installing them this year. So we're going to order the cameras as it gets closer to time for them to come in. They'll be here, most of them around the first of the year, January, February. And we will install the cameras ourselves on the buses. So yes, they will have cameras on them, but it's not included in this price.
Mr. Lake, how much are we saving by doing it ourselves?
The installation fee, they charge $455 a system. So over 10 buses, that's $4,500. And then the cameras themselves, we get them cheaper. It's, I think, $200 or $300 a system cheaper if we buy them, as opposed to the Wayne Supply buying them. We go through REI. That seems to be the company I've looked at. There's REI and Sayon and others, and REI seems to give us the clearest picture. And they're actually a little bit cheaper. So.
And at one time we would there's been a couple of times where we've actually had the company install them for us, but we cost that out every year. And now with the current technology, with things going more wireless, it doesn't take us as long to install them. So
that's a great point.
It's a cost savings for us to install them ourselves now.
We've just installed some cameras on some systems on buses recently, and it's taking around 2 hours less time to put a system on due to a hard drive system that is new.
Mr. Lakes, do you mind explaining to some of our viewers just why we buy 10 buses every year and how we rotate them through? Do you mind sharing with everyone quickly?
Sure. Buses, and this is hard to explain, but buses are supposed to have a shelf life of 14 years, and they depreciate. So after 14 years, they're supposed to be worthless or not supposed to bring any money. Now, do we have buses out there running that are over 14 years old? Yes, we do. We have buses that are still in good shape that we do not retire at that point. Not every bus, like your vehicles, not every bus or vehicle makes it 14 years. But the average life of a bus is supposed to be 14 years. In order to maintain our fleet, so we have as many buses as we need to buy 10 a year to maintain that fleet, because they roll off the other end in 14 years theoretically. So that's the reason we buy 10 buses per year. And the breakdown of two handicap bus or special needs buses, 4 conventional and 4 rear engines, usually works out pretty well for us.
So how many buses do we have total?
We have 181 buses, counting our sub buses. This is not counting CSEP buses that are parked at school. We have 181 active buses. We run 158 routes daily. And we have about 20, some of those are double routes. We have about 25 substitute buses.
How many miles do we drive a week on our buses, Mr. Lakes?
We drive 10,000 miles a day. So 50,000 miles approximately.
And Mr. Lakes, will we be surplusing any buses as you roll on these new ones? Or we
Yes.
just got,
Sorry, some of them, yes, we will. We'll move some to what we call the CSEP program, as you all are aware of. We'll move them over to the schools, the buses that are not as in good shape. And then the ones we take off the CSEP side, we usually end up having an auction and getting rid of those. And we do that normally in the fall under Mr. Cash's leadership on that.
And that kind of gives you an idea of the progression there. We buy the new buses, we run them on routes, then we move them to sub buses. And then after a few years as a sub bus, then we've been moving them to CSEP buses and then eventually to a surplus.
And we also make a conscious effort. Let's say that we have a bus that goes out in the county. You know, we may run it on that route a couple of years, and then we may move it to in town where it's not accumulating the same number of miles. We, keep it shorter to extend the life of them.
Mr. Lakes, are we in need of bus drivers? Like, I know in the past, we're always in need.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we are always in need of bus drivers. We have enough right now to cover our routes. We don't have a whole lot of subs. Last school year, of course, it was shortened. I probably drove 50 times myself. So we are short of drivers. And if you have any friends or anybody out there watching, we would love to have you. Just call us, come to see us, wear a mask, and we'll get you started. We'd love to have bus drivers.
Are there any other questions?
I just want to make a quick comment, Mr. Lakes. I do want to thank you because I know you did a great job of negotiating these prices. I think they started out just a tad bit higher and you shoehorned them a little bit and were able to get us a better deal. So I appreciate you doing that.
I appreciate you all helping us out, and I'm very thankful for our board. You all have been very good to us here at the Transportation Department. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say something, Mr. Lakes, real quick. We did get these below what the state contract price was, correct?
Yes, sir. We did. This is cheaper than the bid price, than what's on the bid list.
Very good.
Any other questions? All right, then let's make a motion to approve the purchase of a total of 10 buses, 2 66-passenger buses, 4 72-passenger buses, and 4 84-passenger buses for a total of $1,062,576.
So moved.
All right, the motion's been made by Mrs. Cobb, the second by Mr. Rutherford. Will that be okay? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Lake.
Thank you.
All right, I was hearing some staticky, so it's gone now. So hopefully, do you all hear it?
We're good.
No static? Okay, good. We're good. 5G, to approve Save the Children grant. And our speaker is Dr. Gillum.
All right, good evening. Save the Children grant. This is an opportunity that we have through the Save the Children Foundation, and it is a literacy grant that they're proposing to be a part of Madison County Schools at 2 locations, and that's Kingston Elementary and Daniel Boone Elementary. Save the Children writes the grants, and they choose the schools that they want to that they're able to operate on based off of the free and reduced lunch percentages at those schools. It is a literacy grant, and essentially what it is paying for, it is paying for some curriculum, and as well, it's also paying for some for 2 individuals at each school, to employ 2 individuals at each school, and that's the next item on our agenda is to approve those positions. But if the board approves participation in this grant, it would allow us to hire a student support specialist, which is essentially an individual that has a college degree, but they don't have teaching certification. But they would be specifically trained through Save the Children to work with this grant and implement some of these teaching strategies. And then they would also have an assistant to work with that, which would be a paraeducator, effectively. So it would be those 2 individuals at each school, Kingston and Daniel Boone. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I will say that I saw Mr. Sexton the other day, and he was very excited about this grant. He thinks it's going to be a real benefit for the kids in his school. So
Sure.
I think it's a great thing.
And I think it was an excellent PowerPoint that you sent us. It was very nice, well made.
And that kind of takes it through those pieces. And as you read through that PowerPoint, you could see where it was talking about literacy. You can see the components of this grant tie in perfectly with the different literacy initiatives that we've had and our approach to literacy with our Read to Achieve grants and everything. So it's a really great opportunity for those two schools, those kids in those schools.
Any other questions? All right, then I need a motion to approve the Save the Children grant as presented.
So move.
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made by Mrs. Coyle, second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion carries. Wonderful. It's exciting. Next is 5H on our agenda to create, ratify 2 student support personnel and 2 paraeducator positions. The Save the Children grant, like Dr. Gillum just explained, will fund 2 student support personnel positions and 2 paraeducator positions. As he mentioned, Daniel Boone Elementary will have 1 student support position and 1 paraeducator position, and Kingston Elementary will have 1 student support position and 1 paraeducator position. Is there anything else, Dr. Gillum, that you'd like to add before we vote?
No, not other than these are funded by the grant, and when the grant ends, these positions would end. So this is not a recurring cost for us outside of the grant.
Good, thank you. I'm glad you added that. Any other questions? All right, then I need a motion to create and ratify 2 student support personnel positions and 2 paraeducator positions. 1 student support personnel position and 1 paraeducator position will be at Daniel Boone Elementary and 1 each at Kingston Elementary. These positions will be funded through the Save the Children grant.
So moved.
All right, motion's been made by Mrs. Cobb, second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion carries. Even more exciting. All right, moving on the agenda, we are still in 5, but we are moving on to 5I, create and ratify 1 special education consultant position. Dr. Gillum, is there anything that you'd like to add to this?
Well, let me just make sure everyone out there, I know you guys have read the explanation for this and as well the demands that are on our special ed to comply with federal and state laws. Particularly those federal laws, those IDEA laws. But what this individual does, they work directly with the kids and the families and the teachers and the principals in the schools that they're assigned to. Currently we have 5 consultants. Each one of them has a caseload. And this past year, our numbers of students in special ed have continued to increase over the years. And this past year, we took a pretty good uptick in students that qualified. And we anticipate that to continue over the next couple of years. As student populations increase, and also just the demanding needs of some of the children that we're working with. And so those caseloads have got such that for the coming year, we're going to have to add an additional person into this role to make sure that we maintain compliance with all the special ed laws. So, and this as well, it's not specifically mentioned in this, but we use our IDEA funds, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act funding, which is federal funding. We use that to pay for these positions. That IDEA funding helps us pay for our consultants and our school psychologists and some of these other pieces. And we're going to mention school psychologists here in just a minute as well. But that's where the majority of those funds come from to pay for these positions. So as the number of students increase, the funding in that we receive for that increases, and so there's an expectation that we increase staff to accommodate. So that's where we are.
Any other questions? Okay. Then I need a motion to create, ratify one special education consultant position.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Rutherford. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Well needed. I think that will be a very respected and well appreciated position.
Yeah, I know Miss Reader had said she really needed this position. So
Yes. Moving on our agenda to 5J, create, ratify one psychologist consultant position. Dr. Gillum, any additions here that you'd like to add?
This is a school psychologist position that we commonly refer to it as. And just so folks will know a couple of points about this. First of all, this is tied back into our special needs students as well. Every student, when they're identified as potential for special needs, they have to have an evaluation by a school psychologist. And so anytime a student is recommended for special ed services, we have to do that. And then once a student's been identified as special needs, they have to get reevaluated annually or every couple of years, depending on their age and their disability piece. But anyway, as our numbers increase, that again thoroughly increases the demands on those on our school psychologists, and so their caseloads get very high. And this past year, our numbers went up such that our increase in numbers alone would justify the caseload. In addition to that, and just so you'll know, we currently have eight school psychologists, and then we contract one. And an item coming up in just a moment is to continue a contract for one of those. But we have 8, so this would be adding and going to a 9th one. We did have 10% increase in the number of special needs students that we had. As well, we know from our safety bills, the state safety bill, Senate Bill 8, where it requires that we increase our mental health professionals in our school districts, and they're seeking a ratio. We're supposed to be working toward a ratio of 250 to 1. That includes our guidance counselors and our school psychologists and our social workers. They're all put in that category of mental health professionals or counseling professionals. And so this would also help us get toward that. Just so you'll know where we are on progress toward that, the total that we need in Madison County would be 45. I believe this puts us at 38 or 39 to meet that quota. So we're not there yet, but we're pretty close, probably closer than a lot of districts on that ratio. But still, this meets the needs in a lot of different areas. And as I mentioned before, this is also one of those things that we can use some of those IDEA funds to help offset this cost. So any other questions?
Dr. Gillum, I was just wondering, are our psychologists assigned to a particular school, or is it more individual children?
They are. They have a caseload of students, and they go to depending on the circumstances and situations, they go to 2 or 3 schools. Each one of them does, and then we have Carly Cornelius, who serves as our lead school psychologist. She has schools as well, but then she also, anytime we have any type of traumatic event or anything like that, any type of crisis situation, she responds there, and they respond as a team, but she specifically goes there and deals with that. And also another thing that's put a demand on our school psychologists is the threat assessments. With as we're more concerned with safety and some of the things that come up, we have increased over the years just the number of threat assessments where we actually go in and sit down with kids who have made threatening comments and that type of thing and try to evaluate the threat. And our school psychologists are involved in that threat assessment piece too. So that's an extra lift on the part of those school psychologists that we've seen increase over the past few years that just a few years ago was rare or non-existent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Gillum. That's a lot. I mean, 1 for every 250 students. That's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so I need a motion to create, ratify one psychologist consultant position.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, so the motion's been made by Mrs. Coyle, second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion carries. Moving on the agenda to 5K, to approve the continuation of contract with Mind PSI.
Yeah, and one of this goes along with the school psychologist piece. This is for a school psychologist, and it's a specific individual that has served as a school psychologist. They're currently employed as an independent contractor with a facility here in Richmond, and we are able to contract with them to provide additional services. So the way this works is our school psychologists that we have employed in the county handle as many things, as many cases as they can, and then we supplement that with this other individual. So if the work is needed, we have up to a full year, I think it's 170 day, which is almost a full year, full school year, 170 day contract with them, and we can use that individual as little or as much as we have a need to do. So it's a cost savings piece. It's good for everyone.
Any other questions? All right, then I need a motion to approve the continuation of the contract with Mind PSI Psychological Services for School Psychologist Services. That's a mouthful right there.
So moved.
All right, the motion's been made by Mr. Rutherford. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion carries. Moving on to 5L, create, ratify one teacher position at Kirksville. The rationale for this is this teacher position will be paid using Kirksville Title I funds.
I will just jump in real quickly on this one. Currently, with our current allocation piece, Kirksville would like to have another teacher, but the student population doesn't quite call for it. They may get there if they get a few more students enrolled, so they're really close. And so in order to go ahead and make preparation for that anticipated addition, they're going to go ahead and use their funds to pay for this teacher. If in the event that they do get an increased enrollment, then that burden would shift back through our allocation formula to the district as an allocated position. But they're going to use their Title I funds for right now.
Any questions? All right, then I need a motion to create, ratify a 1.0 teacher position at Kirksville Elementary School.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mrs. Cobb. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion carries. You know, when we have our school board meetings and I have to look right and left, and this is great because you guys are all right here in front of me. Sometimes, though, I can't tell who's who when you guys make the motion. All right, moving on. 5M, to approve the superintendent's evaluation. All right, so I want to tell everyone, I know we talked about this a little bit last month, but we did evaluate, the board did this year's evaluation for Dr. Gillum. Of course, he got exemplary in all 7 standards. I want to review those real quickly: strategic leadership, instructional leadership, cultural leadership, human resource leadership, managerial leadership, collaborative leadership, and influential leadership. So, does anyone have any questions before we discuss what we decided to do with his contract? All right. So with all 5 of his exemplaries, I'm looking for all my notes. All right. Dr. Gillum, is there anything else that I need to add in that portion? That was my summary.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think you just need a motion to approve that evaluation.
All right, that's what I thought. I just don't want to leave anything out.
That's good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. So I need a motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation as presented.
So moved.
So-
Everybody's excited about that one. All right. The motion's been made by Mrs. Cobb. Was the second by Mr. Rutherford?
Or Beth.
Becky made it.
Becky did. Okay.
Beth did. I'm glad to. Be glad to.
Soon that I could tell who was doing what. So, all right.
I'll make it.
Okay. I'm doing the motion by Mrs. Cobb and the second by Mrs. Brock. Is that agreeable?
Sure.
All right. See, Dr. Gillum, they're all fighting over you. All right. So the motion's been made. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Congratulations, Dr. Gillum. Well deserved.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is 5N to approve the addendum to the superintendent's contract. Does anyone have any questions before I read over what the contract will be amended? Okay, so during our May 28th meeting, we went into executive session to discuss his contract. I have reviewed all of the evaluations, and we came to the conclusion that we are adding 5 lead days to Dr. Gillum's contract, and we are going to increase his monthly travel reimbursement by $100 per month. Is there any other discussion? Well, I think with all the exemplaries, Dr. Gillum, we think you're worth millions, but I don't think that we could get away with paying you the millions and millions that you're worth. But
Thank you. I appreciate that. Your confidence in me means more than salary. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And I think it's also worth noting that Dr. Gillum would not even entertain an increase in salary. So I think that says a lot about his character and his commitment to this district.
I completely agree. Any other comments at this time? All right. Then I need a motion to approve the addendum to Superintendent Gillum's contract as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right. The motion's been made by Mrs. Coyle, second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. Congratulations, Dr. Gillum.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Maybe next year and the year after and the year after. We're not letting him go anywhere. All right. So moving on the agenda to 5. All right, 5-0, to approve the first reading of the 2020-2021 policy updates. I almost got worried that I'm skipping something there for a minute. Dr. Gillum, do you want to add anything to that?
This is just simply our annual policy updates, and the couple of ones that, first of all, we belong to the Kentucky School Boards Association, which does an annual policy review, as they do for almost every district in the state. And as we have changes in law, they take our policies and they update them to make sure that they're compliant with those laws. Most of what we have this year is just a few little subtle nuances in the terminology and some of the descriptive pieces that are reflecting the changes in law. The two, I guess, probably the two that did not come in the bundled KSBA policy changes are specifically our bus use for outside groups. We're limiting that to in-state. And then the other piece is the use of tobacco and alternative nicotine and vapor products. That policy we are adopting this year. It was recommended to be passed last year, but I asked, but we had a year to be able to put that in place. So now that deadline's up. So we, it is a change in law that we have to adopt. But also, I wanted a year for it. We had up to a year to adopt that policy. Typically, we don't have it in time, but the legislature gave us a year to adopt those policies. We took that full year to make sure that we could actually fully implement that. One thing that I'm very committed to is not passing a policy that you can't. If we have a policy in place, we're going to follow it. And so I wanted to make sure that we were well positioned, and treated our people fairly, because that one does talk about the use of tobacco and nicotine products. And we have some employees that have used nicotine products on campus for years. Some of our folks, we got at our bus garage. Some of those folks did smoke, and they would go out behind the building, and custodians the same way. And this prohibits that now. And so we wanted to make sure that we kind of eased into that, gave folks a year to realize that it was coming, for them to be able to work through that, so that now, as this policy is now in place, we're able to fully enforce it. So other than that, standard policies, just a little bit of language, terminologies that the legislature came up with.
Dr. Gillum, how are they planning on enforcing this? If someone wants to take a cigarette break and go out back, how can we police that?
Well, obviously this is, now that it's policy, that is, that's our responsibility to now police. And of course, with our employees, we have that would be a violation of a board policy, and we would then take whatever sanctions we can. We have a variety of sanctions we can use with employees. Probably the most challenging one will be at, this also involves any visitors to campus. So if we have a football game, someone that pulls up in the parking lot and is smoking, they're not allowed to do that now. And we're not going to pull out the tobacco police or anything on them, but what we will do is we'll ask that people not do that, and we'll step up our game on that a little bit. So I feel that we can enforce it. It won't be comfortable in every situation, but our people work with us. We have a great community here in Madison County, and folks are, they understand that this is required. They understand the rule behind it. They may not agree with it, but they understand the purpose behind it, and they're going to work with us. Almost every person that we will encounter will work with us and will cooperate with us on that. So,
I know we have signs around campus that says tobacco-free campus. Are we going to have more signs made? Is there money for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to evaluate. We're going to take a tour around our campuses before we resume school, and make sure that all of those. We slowly started putting those up last year. That's actually a pretty big deal when you talk about 19 campuses and as well district offices in the maintenance building. We have about 22, 23 different locations where we have to do that, and so that's a pretty big lift for our maintenance staff to get all those in and get them ordered and get them in the right places. And that's another reason why we kind of held off on that change in policy, because we wanted to make sure that we had signage in place and that people were used to seeing that signage before we started, before we had actually adopted the policy.
Are there any other questions?
I do have a comment, if you guys don't mind, with regard to the use of our buses by outside organizations. I want to make sure that all of our board members are aware of an issue that creates for our insurance. Our insurance does not cover the district or the school board when those buses are being used by outside groups, and we're not transporting students, and it's not a school-sponsored event. So if we could maybe gather some information and maybe revisit that, I think it puts us at risk of not having any insurance if we loan this bus out or rent our bus out to an outside group that has a really bad accident. I'm not opposed to helping our community, but when we don't have any insurance coverage for those buses when those wheels are rolling, I think that's something that we might want to gather some information and look a little bit further into and see if we think those risks are worth doing.
And yes, and I certainly think we need to look into that. I think that's a good idea. I have done a general check on the schools across the state. It's about 50-50 in terms of those districts that allow the use of buses to outside groups and those that don't. And the counties that surround us, it's about half of those. But I will pull a list together of kind of how many times that we're doing that per year, and I'll share that with the board. And it's not very often, but and so it might be best to just accept, pass a policy, amend the policy, and just say it can't happen. But I'll pull some information together, and I will send that out to board members, and we can make a decision on that anytime you guys would like.
That'd be great. And I want to make sure our viewers know too, it's not because we have bad insurance. That is the case for all of the public schools across the state of Kentucky. It's something that is included on all the policies as mandated by the KDE. So it's not that we've chosen bad insurance. It's a statewide issue. So
thank you, Lori. Lori and I were texting back and forth yesterday. I completely agree with her, and Dr. Gillum and I spoke about it yesterday on the phone as well. So are there any other questions? Okay, if not, then I need a motion to approve the first reading of the 2020-2021 policy update. Or updates, I should say, because there's more than one.
So moved.
All right, the motion's been made by Mr. Rutherford. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second has been made by Mrs. Cobb. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next is 5P, to cancel our June 25th meeting. So from what we understand, Dr. Gillum, all the financial information that we typically hear during this meeting has already been brought to us. Is that correct?
Yes, we always put an additional meeting in June at the end because our fiscal year ends on June 30. So just in the event that there's any business that we couldn't get taken care of before then, that we would have that meeting to be able to do that. But it appears that everything is fine. We have taken care of our folks. A lot of our directors, everything, as you've heard from tonight, we're really good about pulling their information, as you're going to see from Mr. Woods' report here in just a second. They're really good about getting everything together, so we're able to close out this fiscal year. So should not need that additional meeting. And we canceled that the last few years, off and on over the years, just to make sure. We scheduled it just to make sure, but we try not to have that meeting if it's possible.
Any questions? All right, if not, then I need a motion to cancel the June 25th meeting of the Madison County Board of Education.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mrs. Brock. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. I was worried. I thought you guys were wanting to still put together.
I think we're just trying to not talk over each other.
I know. All right, moving on to our third page of our agenda. We're going to 5Q, the instruction. And our instruction report tonight is by our speaker, Dr. Alicia Hunter. Hello, Ms. Hunter.
Hello. This is to approve our iReady diagnostic testing. And just as a quick reminder, our diagnostic testing is given 3 times a year in math and reading. And this provides that all important actionable data that kind of pinpoints student strengths and those knowledge gaps that give students and teachers that opportunity to set those goals that we talk about within their classroom so that they can show what kind of growth is needed, but it also gives them that knowledge where that grade level expectation is and gives them that information that is needed to reach that goal. And so this is that tool that we've used for several years now that is so important for our students and teachers. Any questions? This is the diagnostic part. Now, the instructional pathway that we have used during NTI and we use throughout the rest of the year, schools are responsible for purchasing that part. This is just the the diagnostic part, that testing part that we give 3 times a year.
I don't think anyone has any questions.
All right. We are very, very appreciative of your support for this.
I think we're relying on you for this, Miss Hunter.
Exactly. And there's some days my child loves already and some days she doesn't. So
I think everybody's in that boat, but it is a great tool.
it is. It's an excellent tool. Okay, then we'll move on to 5QB to approve the PO to Curriculum Associates for the purchase of iReady.
So move.
Second.
All right. The motion's been made by Mrs. Quell and the second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Any opposition? Okay, motion carries. I do want to say I didn't read the whole motion. It is for the amount of $74,611.20. So I want to make sure we add that in there.
I think we're all just trying to get Miss Hunter to her baby.
Yes. New grandbaby. We're just as excited. Well, maybe we're not as excited as she is, but we're excited for you.
I
All
can.
Moving on to 5R, finance. Our finance report tonight is with Mr. Mark Woods, our CFO of Madison County Schools. Hello, Mr. Woods.
Hello, how are you all this evening?
We're good.
How are you, Mark?
Doing just fine, sir. All right, I'm going to switch over and present my screen here. All right, you should be able to see the bank reconciliation report now. I hope anyway. Let me know if you do not see that.
We can see it.
All right, great. As of May 31st, the district ended with a reconciled balance of $48,192,209.47 in the bank account. That amount is up, as you can see from this time last year. We've talked about this extensively. A big portion of that's due to the construction accounts. We've been holding our construction money, all of our building funds, in preparation for the Richmond ATC and the Berea Career Centers. Those are funds that we have to hold back for future projects, so we've been holding those to make sure that we have enough to allocate to those as part of our requirements. Also in there, we do have an increase you will see in the food service, and that increase is due to all of the feeding that we've done during the pandemic. We really fed a lot more students than we normally do during a typical school year. The food service department really stepped up, and they've done an awesome job at feeding the community, and that accounts for why we have a higher bank balance in food service after their reimbursements. Of the reconciled balance, we have $5,983,990.65 in investments. And those rates range from 1.0 to 2.6, as you can see here. Our CD with Fork Bank, the one that dropped to 1%, it renewed during the pandemic. It was a 3-month CD, and quite honestly, we talked about it last time. The rates dropped significantly due to everything going on in the pandemic. They're still giving us a really good rate because their standard rate is 0.15% right now, and they're giving us a 1% on our money. Also, in your monthly packet for the finances, you had the balance sheet and the revenue and expense report. You did receive those early, so you've had time to review those, and I will take any questions at this point.
Mr. Woods, you were mentioning the food service. Don't we get reimbursed to some degree on a lot of our food service?
On volume, is that, I'm sorry?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, especially with the summer feeding, it is a flat rate that we're reimbursed, but volume does make a huge difference. And with the amount of students that we were feeding across the district, yes, it did increase our reimbursements.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, then we need a motion to approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mrs. Cobb. Was that a second by you, Mrs. Brock?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next, before we move on, we've got some new viewers on our Facebook and YouTube pages. I just want to let everybody know, if we don't ask a lot of questions right now, we've had our agenda for about a week. So we've had a chance to talk to Mr. Woods or Dr. Gillum or Dr. Brumbaugh or Dr. Hunter about questions that we could have possibly had. So just wanted to make sure that people know that, and that we're not just sitting here not asking the right questions, proper questions. So moving on the agenda is 5RC, to set the salary schedule. Mr. Woods, do you want to talk about that?
There were very few changes in the salary schedule this year. I did highlight the few changes that were in there. Most of these, we looked at areas where our salary schedules were kind of out of line with the other districts, and particularly when an employee gets up above 20 years of service. So we're requesting to add some bands in there for longevity and for people being loyal and staying with our district. So we're asking to put those in there, make sure that there are steps above that 20-year. We had one, but they jumped in about 5-year increments and stopped at 25. And this will make it a little more consistent with our surrounding districts. So those are that's the main issues and the main things that we tried to focus on with this salary schedule.
So basically, Mr. Woods, we are providing to some level a pay increase to those that stick with us for 20 years and beyond. Yes.
These are for years of service increments.
Great, thank you.
I thought it was 25 years. Is it 20 or 25 years?
Well, with the certified teaching scale, there was a 23 and a 27 added in there because that makes it more consistent. And with that, it went from 20, and you did not get an increase for years of service until 25 before. So there's a 23 and a 27 added in there, which does make it very consistent with the surrounding counties.
Well, I just want you to know, we haven't voted on this yet, but on Facebook, you're getting a lot of likes and comments, Mr. Woods, on this.
Well, thank you.
And we appreciate you comparing to other counties and making sure that we set the right amount so that we appreciate our teachers and our staff. So we want to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions? All right, then we need a motion to set the 2020-2021 salary schedule as presented.
So moved.
All right, the motion's been made by Mrs. Coyle, the second by Mr. Rutherford. Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right, all those approved, say yes, please.
Yes.
Any opposition? All right, no opposition. So the motion carries. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Woods. All right. Set pay date schedule. Still with you.
All right. Every year we're required to bring this to the board. And in order for us to cut our payrolls, we have to bring the schedule and get the board's approval of the dates that we will cut each payroll. We try to keep it as consistent as possible with the 1st and the 16th of the month. Now, I did highlight some of those on the copy that you received so that you can see when those are a little different. And those are due to federal holidays or weekends, because banks cannot transmit ACH funds over the weekends. So we do have to be mindful of that when we set our dates. And we do provide this list. Once it's approved, it will be out there on our intranet for all of our employees to be able to see. We also put it in our Munis self-serve, which is where people can go in. They can look at their paycheck stubs. They can look at the amount of leave time they have and everything. We also put it in the forms out there so that it is available to them and they are able to see this.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, then I need a motion to set the pay date schedule as presented.
So moved.
The motion's been made by Mrs. Brock. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Woods.
Thank you all.
Is Samantha frozen?
Yep, I think he is.
I think she's frozen.
You might be. Well, the next item is superintendent report, and I can go ahead and start on that. If you guys would like me to do that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, well, good. So for my superintendent report tonight, first of all, let me start off by saying that our hearts are hurt tonight for the family of Emmanuel Pruitt. And they, along with all of his friends across the county, are in our thoughts and prayers. Certainly a very tragic situation. It's one of those moments where we just pause and try to support each other in the community. And Massaquoi is a great place to do that. So, but we are very concerned about the family this evening. So in other pieces, though, let me give you some good news. I guess congratulations to our new Madison Southern principal, James Ray. Mr. Ray is currently the principal at Clark Moore's Middle School, and he is a former assistant principal at Madison Southern, and he's excited to get started down in his new position at Madison Southern, and he'll begin work immediately to get things rolling down there and continue the good things that they're doing at Madison Southern. And we'll get started very soon on finding a great person to fill his role at Clark Moore's Middle School. The other thing, I guess another piece is I want to discuss two pieces of data that were recently published statewide that I'd like to share with everyone. The first is our Impact Working Conditions Survey. Those results are now out and they're available, and the report is available at impactky.org. This survey collects information from employees in all schools across the state, and then it reports the percent of their favorable responses to questions. And again, it is a statewide survey. All schools take it. And Madison County as a whole scored above the state and national average in almost every category on that survey. So I'm very appreciative of the work there. But I also want to specifically highlight two specific categories. The first is school climate, and the second is school leadership. In each of those categories, Madison County scored 10% above the state average, which was higher than the national average in each of those categories. And that speaks certainly to the excellent work that our principals and our school leaders are doing in the buildings to establish a good school climate and provide that leadership that's so critical. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate our teachers for recognizing that, and as well that school climate. Certainly, the tone is set with leadership, but the not just our principals and our other administrators, but our teacher leadership is so critical in establishing that school climate and how they interact with their students. So those were two numbers that were very positive, and two numbers that I think speak volumes about our people and what they're doing in our schools. The second piece of data is some financial data, and it's the analysis of our financial data, actually. And it's been posted to the Kentucky Department of Education school report card. They posted this information on our school report card page just the other day. And so what I'd like to do at this time, I'm going to try to pull up here and share my screen if I can. I'm going to go to present now and try to get the window here that I want to share, and hopefully you will be able to see that in just a second. So hopefully you are able to see a screen with a document on it that shows some percentages and some numbers. And so I'll have to kind of scroll through. But the first part of this that I would like to share with you is this. Notice this blue line right here. And what we've got, these columns represent a category, and then what we spend either per person or per student on these services. And this is how the state breaks it down as they analyze this, put it on a school report card. And then the state comparison to that per pupil or per person. And so some things here that I think are very important for us to look at as we kind of weigh out how we're doing in Madison County in regard to our spending. Tonight, we have spent a lot of money. We've done a lot of things to plan for next year. We try to, in the June meeting, pack a lot of our expenses and a lot of our contracts into this June meeting, so we're ready to hit the ground running July 1, because as we said, our fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30. But the first thing I'd like to point out is our total spending in Madison County. The state average is $14,063 per pupil. In Madison County, we are spending $11,629 per pupil. So we're only spending 82.7% of the state average. And so I think when we compare district to district and when we look at what we're doing, I think this gives us a good indication that we are being good stewards of our money here in Madison County. As well, I don't have the balance of federal, of state to local spending on this, but Madison County has one of the, with their property values being pretty solid in Madison County, that shifts a significant burden to our local taxpayers. So considering that, and that's just the way the state formula works, considering that, it's important for us to keep, to do the best job we can educating our kids, but also to keep our costs as low as possible. So that's the first piece that I wanted to show you. But then as well, when you look at the different categories, and these are pretty much all of the categories that the state actually analyzes on our financial data. And again, you can go to our school report card, Madison County page. You can pull all of this information up. That's where it comes from. So aside from the first piece, how much we're spending compared to the state average, I'd like you to also look at this column right here, and you'll notice there is only one category, and there's only one category across the board where we spend more per pupil than the state average, and that's transportation. And we feel that it's important to do that because we have a large county geographically. We have a lot of roads. We try our best to separate our elementary school students from our middle and high on some buses as much as possible. We can't do that entirely, but we do that as much as possible so that we can create shorter bus runs and other things. Obviously, that comes at a cost. We could get this below state average if we wanted to, but we feel that would be doing a disservice to our people, though. So that's the only one where we are above the state average. The other thing that I would want to show you is as you look at all of these spending categories, the top half indicates those, because this is arranged by percentage compared to the state. The top half shows you the categories where we're a little above Madison County spending of 82.7% of state average. And the ones below are the areas where we are below our percentage of 82.7 compared to state spending. Meaning, this is where we're putting our priorities in these items up here. And I think if you read through those, transportation, student support services, construction debt on our buildings, teacher salaries, instructional staff, food service, principals, and instruction, we're putting our money there, and we're trying our best to save money on plant and operations, non-instructional services, substitute spending, administrative support services, business support services, and facility acquisitions. So sometimes people want to point overhead and administrative costs and all of those. This, first of all, speaks to the fact that our priority is in classroom, and second of all, that we're doing very well when compared to state averages on this. In fact, I think you've probably heard before that I've said our administrative costs in Madison County are the second lowest in the state. They were third lowest a couple of years ago, and now they're down to the second lowest. And so I just want folks to be aware that as we spend a lot of money tonight, and as we see a lot of things go, and as we also know, how tight the economy is getting, and things, I just want people to know we are doing the best that we can, and we're going to continue to do that. This doesn't mean that we've got an extra, $2,000 per kid to spend. This means we need to. This kind of sets the bar for us to do our best to keep our expenses, and particularly our overhead expenses, as low as possible. So, wanted to show you that piece of data tonight in the superintendent report. That was just posted last week to our school report card. And then the last thing that I will share with you is just again, we're looking at the start of the 2021 school year, and everyone again wants to know, when are we going to open school? And we're currently working toward making our original calendar a reality, and I think that's what folks need to know. We had a calendar, we approved it in December, and that calendar said that we would start back August the 12th. And then go through what is a traditional type of calendar. We plan to do that, and that's what we're working toward. But we also have two groups that are currently working on our plans. One is a return to school advisory panel. It's made up of teachers and parents and a few district representatives. And then our second group is our return to school transition team, which is made up of district directors and principals. And those two teams are working, so we're preparing for whatever may come. And while there's still a lot of unknowns, realize that I'm in a virtual meeting just about every day, and certainly every week with officials from the governor's office or the health department or educational co-ops, or with other superintendent and statewide superintendent organizations, to share ideas, gather input, and stay on top of everything that's going on with the changes. We know this. Every day there are changes that are happening in terms of the number of businesses that are opening and the different things that we can do. And we plan to, we're again we're pulling all that information in. We're digesting it the best way we can. We're looking at how that information might impact us come the start of school. But we will have some much more explicit and direct plans for our people right after the 1st of July, because right now we can't say specifically what school will look like when we start, simply because we do not know what the coronavirus is going to look like when we get ready to start school. And so our planning will be built around that. But flexibility is key, and we're putting everything that we're putting into place and everything we're planning around is for us to be able to have flexible models for our to deliver our instruction, so that our families in our community have a choice. That is very important to us, because we know that there's a variety of different needs and a variety of different responses from individuals and from families regarding the situation. So we hear that, we're working toward it, we're taking input. We delivered our survey last week. We've gotten a tremendous amount of feedback on that, and we're continuing to work toward that. And that is my superintendent report for tonight.
Samantha's on mute.
You're muted, Samantha.
All right, there we go. I've had all kinds of technical difficulties. My Wi-Fi went out and it threw you guys off just a second ago. So before we move on, I do need to go back to 5F. There were some numbers transposed with our bus. So to approve the bus purchase, to make it appropriate and to get the proper approval with KSBA, we need to make sure that we go back and revote, if that's okay with everyone, because I want to make sure that our meeting is accurate and everything is exactly the way it needs to be. So the number for the bus, so let's do this. I need a motion to purchase a total of 10 buses, 2 66 passenger buses, 4 72 passenger buses, and 4 84 passenger buses. And that total amount that I had incorrect earlier is $1,065,276. So that is the new amount. So thank you, Mr. Rutherford. With the motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second with Mrs. Brock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Do we need to do anything about the last motion? Do we need to rescind that or anything?
I don't know. Jeannie, do we need to rescind the last motion on the 5F, or will we?
KSBA, you're okay.
Okay. Yeah, she was, while Dr. Gillen was giving his report and I was frozen, she was on the phone with KSBA. So all good. Now we're all perfect. Okay. So comments from the board, number 6 on our agenda.
I got a couple of things. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Brumball, Mr. Lakes, Mr. Cash, Mr. Woods, everybody who's worked hard on all these purchases, trying to save the district as much money as we can on these purchases. And also, I'd like to give a shout out to our custodians in all of our schools that are working hard, stripping the floors, waxing floors, painting, trying to get them spruced up and ready for kids to come back to school in August. So they're working really hard, and I just want them to know we really appreciate the work they're doing.
Anyone else tonight? That was well said, Mr. Rutherford, and I agree, because I think it's utmost important right now that our parents and staff, teachers, everyone, our administration know that our number one priority is not only educating our students, but keeping them safe. And not just, in the last years, it's been about school safety, but now it's about school safety with health. So it's all compiled and it's extremely important. So are there any other comments? All right. We want to thank everybody for watching, because I know our June meeting is extremely long. We make a lot of purchases, very important purchases. So we have a lot of speakers and we appreciate everybody watching. Please make sure that you watch our YouTube channel, our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, all of our feeds to make sure that you have all the latest information about our Madison County school system and about all the questions that we're getting, that you're asking, and we appreciate it so much. And Dr. Gillum, a lot of people had a lot of, there was a comments. You have a lot of fans out there tonight. So when we did your evaluation, people were really excited. So you had a lot of congratulations on there.
Thank them. I appreciate that.
All right. So moving on to our last item, number 7 is to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
You guys said it at the same time. So we'll make the motion by Mr. Rutherford and a second by Mrs. Cobb. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Okay. Motion carries. So we are officially adjourned.
Bye. See you guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
all very much.
Thank
See
you,
you all later.
Jacob.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gillum.
See you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Good job, Samantha. Thank you so much.
And Jeannie, I will see you Monday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for that transposed number.
No, absolutely. I'm glad we got it correct and got it fixed.